What's up, everyone? Welcome back to a new video. Today, Blake and I will be doing our top 25 rankings. A lot of mix-ups happened, but here we go. At number 25, I have James Madison. James Madison is undefeated right now, and they're probably one of the best Group of 5 teams. But Blake, who do you have?
At number 25, I have Texas. Quinn Ewers is coming back this week, aiming to come back this week against Oklahoma. They beat down West Virginia last week. So I got Texas at number 25, Tate.
At number 24, this is where I have Florida State. Florida State is coming off a loss. It's not a it was an ugly game by Jordan Travis. They couldn't stop Sam Hartman. But Florida State, they did beat LSU, and I feel like they could get back this week. They play NC State. So if they win that game, I think they're just going to be right back in the top 25. But I'm going to keep them in the top 25 for now. Blake, who do you have?
At number 24, this is where I put Mississippi State. Mississippi State had a huge win against Texas A&M, beating them 42-24, I do believe. So Mississippi State is looking scary, and I got them ranked at number 24, Tate.
At number 23, Blake, I also have Mississippi State. Mississippi State, like you said, came off a dominant win against A&M. They play a pretty tough opponent this week. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it's Arkansas. But if they beat Arkansas, which I don't think they will, spoil it for my prediction, I'll have them even higher. But I think Arkansas is a better overall team. But Mississippi State's at 23 for me. Blake, who do you have?
At number 23, this is where I have NC State dropping. NC State looked okay against Clemson. It showed they had troubles on the offensive side of the ball. So they have a big game against Florida State. I feel like they're going to fix their problems. Have a big bounce back win against Florida State, Tate.
At number 22, Blake, this is where I have Kansas State. Kansas State, led by Adrian Martinez, looked like a surprise team in the Big 12. Kansas State is actually a sleeper team for me right now. I had them going like 7-5 in the preseason, like I said last week. But looked very solid against Texas Tech. And they got a 37-28 win. They take on Iowa State this week at Iowa State. That should be a good game. But I think Kansas State will get it done. So Kansas State is where I have 22 at. Blake, who do you have?
At number 22, this is where I have Maryland. Maryland looked very good against Michigan State over the weekend. And there ain't much left to be said. Their offense looks great. Defense looks pretty good. Maryland just needs to keep winning if they want to stay in that Big Ten championship race, Tate.
At 21, Blake, this is where I have Minnesota. They are coming off a loss to Purdue, but they're without their best player, Mo Abraham. I feel like this team's still a top 25 team when they have Mo. You could tell the run game was not going. But Blake, who do you have at 21?
At number 21, this is where I have Cincinnati. Even though Cincinnati lost an early game in the season, with all the talent they lost, they still look competitive. And I feel like they're the 21st best team in the country right now, Tate.
Blake, at number 20, this is where I have Washington. They are also coming with a loss to UCLA. It was in UCLA, and UCLA is a sleeper team. They're 5-0 right now. So I'm not going to punish Washington that bad. But if they were to have a close game this week or something, they'd be on my rankings. I still like what I see from Michael Penix and Washington. They still have a chance at winning their division. Blake, who do you have at 20?
At number 20, this is where I have BYU. Even though BYU struggled over the weekend, I still feel like they're bouncing back from that loss they took to Oregon, and keep eye out on BYU moving up the rankings, Tate.
At number 19, Blake, I have another Big Ten team. This is where I have the Terrapins. Terrapins are coming off a win against Michigan State. I feel like that's a big game for them. I mean, Michigan hasn't been playing that good, but Maryland getting the win there is very good for them. They haven't beat Michigan State in a while, and they got the job done. Talia is really good, and I like what I see from Maryland. So they're at 19 for me, Blake. Who do you have?
At number 19, this is where I have Wake Forest. Their only loss comes to a pretty decent Clemson team. They lost in, I think, double overtime too. Wake Forest just beat Florida State, and they look very good, and they're still competing for the ACC championship. I got Wake Forest at number 19, Tate.
At number 18, Blake, I also have this is where I have Wake Forest. Like you said, they're kind of a good win against Florida State. Their only loss against Clemson. But Wake Forest has looked like a solid team, so I have them at 18. But Blake, who do you have?
Tate, at number 18, this is where I have LSU. LSU had a okay win against Auburn over the weekend. I think they're becoming a sleeper team in the SEC. I got LSU at number 19. 18, Tate.
Blake at 17. This is where I have Cincinnati. Like you said, they're a very talented team. They lost the week 1 game. Can you really punish them for a week 1 loss? I don't know. Cincinnati's looked like they did last year. I mean, I think they're the favorite to win the American right now. Houston went down the drain. UCF doesn't look as good as they're supposed to be. But Cincinnati is number 17 for me. Blake, who do you have?
Tate at number 17. This is where I have the Syracuse Orange at. No one thought they'd be 5-0. No one thought they'd be this good in the ACC. But the Syracuse Orange has been an underrated team all season long, it looks like. So I got them ranked number 17, Tate.
Blake at number 16. This is where I have TCU. TCU is coming off a dominant win against Oklahoma. Is Oklahoma really that good? Or is TCU just really that good? I don't know how good Oklahoma is, but that TCU win against them was very impressive. They take on Kansas this week. That's where College Game Day's at. And I'm looking forward to seeing who wins that Kansas TCU showdown. Blake, who do you have at 16?
Tate at number 16. This is where I have Kansas State. Kansas State, I've had two pretty good wins back to back. They went down and beat Oklahoma. That was a big one. And then they had a pretty solid win against Texas Tech. Tate, I got them at number 16.
Speaking of when I pour up TCU Kansas at number 15, this is where I have the Jayhawks. I had them ranked last week, and it's about time the AP poll ranked them. Like I said, this game this week against TCU is going to be a very solid one. But Blake, who do you have at 15?
Tate at number 15, this is where I have UCLA. UCLA upset Washington over the weekend. They are looking like a sleeper team in the Pac-12. Tate, I got UCLA at number 15.
At number 14, Blake, this is where I have the Utah Utes. Their only loss is against Florida, but they looked very solid since then. They just beat Oregon State. Utah, I don't know who they play this week, but I mean, wait, no, Utah plays UCLA this week. That's my bad. But Utah versus UCLA is going to be a big game, and if UCLA pulls that out, it's good for them. But if Utah pulls it out, it's even better for them. Utah, if they lose one more game, they're going to be out of the playoffs, so they have nothing to lose. But Cameron Rising, I feel like, can get it done. So that's why I have them at 14. Blake, who do you have at 14?
Tate at number 14, this is where I have the Kansas Jayhawks. They had a very low-scoring win game against Iowa State over the weekend. I feel like the TCU-Kansas game is going to be very competitive. But I got Kansas at number 14, Tate.
At number 13, Blake, this is where I have Syracuse. Like you said, no one expected them to be this good. I know I didn't. But they keep getting the job done. I feel like that win against Purdue is still a very solid win. Syracuse also got a dominant win against Louisville. And they won against Virginia. I mean, they really haven't been tested. But they do have a test coming up on their schedule. But right now, they're number 13 for me, Blake. Who do you have?
Tate at number 13. This is where I have TCU. TCU absolutely beat down on Oklahoma. Even though Oklahoma's starting quarterback got injured, that game was well out of hand by the time that happened. TCU is looking like, to me, the favorite to win the Big 12 now. Them and Oklahoma State. So I got TCU at number 13, Tate.
At number 12, Blake, this is where I have the UCLA Bruins. UCLA has looked very solid. They just come off a win against Washington. Like I said before, they got a big game against Utah this week. It's a home game. I mean, no one expected them to beat Washington, but they could get the job done. I like Zach Charbonnet at running back. He's a former Michigan player, but Zach Charbonnet has looked stellar in UCLA, and I like what I see from them. So they're number 12 for me right now. Blake, who do you have at 12?
Tate at number 12. This is where I have the Oregon Ducks. Oregon has had their up and downs this year, but they have looked very solid for the last couple weeks. I expect Oregon to bounce back from that loss to Georgia, and they're looking pretty solid in the Pac-12 right now. Tate, I got them number 12.
Oregon for me, Blake, is coming up. Number 11, like you said, they bounced back from Georgia. They survived the scare against Washington State. I like what I see from this Oregon team. I do think they will win their side of the division in the Pac-12, and they just look like a solid team right now. Blake, who do you have at 11?
Take at 11. This is where I have the Utah Utes. Pretty much the same thing with Oregon. They have bounced back very well since their loss to Florida in Week 1. And they're just trying to find a way up the rankings into the college football playoff tape.
At number 10, Blake, I also have another Pac-12 team. This is actually probably going to be shocked a lot of people. I have the Trojans. They don't look as good as I thought they would down in Week 5. I mean, USC has had a couple close games. They survived the scare against Oregon State. But the 9 teams I have ranked ahead of USC, if they were to play on a neutral field, I think the teams I have ahead would beat them. USC has not really been tested, like I said. And I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about this team. They can't be in my top 8 right now. But Blake, who do you have at 10?
Take at number 10. This is where I have the Penn State Nifty Lions ranked. Penn State had a sloppy win over the weekend. But Penn State has I think they play to the level of the competition sometimes. But I expect Penn State to have a big win this week. I got them number 10, Tate.
At number 9, this is where I have Tennessee Volunteers. I liked what I've seen from this team. They got some good wins. I wouldn't be shocked if they make a New Year's Six Bowl or even somehow make the championship in the SEC, because Georgia hasn't looked like themselves these past couple weeks. But Tennessee sets at number 9 for me. Blake, who do you have?
Tate at number 9. This is where I have Ole Miss ranked. Ole Miss beat Kentucky over the weekend, and that was a pretty solid win for them. Ole Miss is the sleeper team in the SEC right now for me. I got Ole Miss at number 9, Tate.
And number 8, Blake, I have the Big 12 favorite. I got the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Sanders is looking very solid. I like what I see from this Oklahoma State team. I just think they're the best team in the Big 12, and they have a high chance of going undefeated this year. Blake could have number 8.
Tate at number 8. This is where I had the other SEC surprise this year, Tennessee. They had a bye week over the weekend, so I kept them ranked at number 8, Tate.
At number 7, Blake, this is where I have Penn State. That game against Northwestern, it was a very rainy game. And, I mean, Penn State was still able to pull it out. They have the better run game. But they also stopped Northwestern's run game, which is pretty solid. But Penn State, they have a bye week, and then they play Michigan. That is going to be a heck of a game. It's a noon game, which is very stupid. But it's going to be Penn State at Michigan with a maze-out game. So that's going to be a good game. But Blake, who do you have at number 7?
Tate at number 7. This is where I have the Oklahoma State Cowboys. They looked very, very good against the Baylor Bears over the weekend. And in my opinion, I think they are the team to beat in the Big 12 right now. Oklahoma State at number 7, Tate.
At number 6, Blake, this is where I have the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss has looked very solid offensively. I mean, Dart, he's inconsistent. But once he gets past the inconsistency, he's a very, very good quarterback. Ole Miss defense came up clutch, forcing 2 fumbles on Levis at the end of the game to keep them in the game and to win the game. But right now they have one of the best wins, so I have them at number 6. Blake, who do you have?
At number 6, this is where I have Clemson Tigers. Clemson Tigers had a very dominant performance against NC State over the weekend. Don't know their top 4 material, but I got them ranked at number 6 right now, Tate.
Blake, at number 5, this is where I have the Clemson Tigers. They're coming off a good win against NC State. I don't feel like anyone should have really expected that. But like you said, Blake, you picked NC State this week, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
It's at Clemson. They're not going to lose. That's what I said. I mean, I picked Wake Forest against them since it was at Wake Forest. But Clemson doesn't really have a tough schedule. They do play at Syracuse, and if Syracuse is actually as good as people think they are, or as good as they're playing right now, it's going to be a tough matchup. But right now, Clemson looks like they're going to be undefeated. Blake, who do you have at 5?
At number 5, this is where I have USC ranked. They had a rough win over the weekend, Tate. But I think every team is going to have their struggles. You've seen every team have their struggles week in, week out. I still think they're the 5th best team in the country, Tate. I get USC at number 5.
Now it's time for our final 4. This is our playoff picks right now. At number 4, this is where I have the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan started out very hot against Iowa, scoring the first possession, but then it's kind of a dead game. I mean, they didn't play terrible at all. I mean, realistically, they allowed 7 points, but Iowa scored with like 38 seconds. But Michigan's looked very solid. I still have them at number 4. But the teams I have ahead of them, I mean, right now, I feel like it would be a 50-50 game. The top 4 is interchangeable for me right now, but Blake, who do you have at number 4?
At number 4, this is where I have Alabama. They had a big win over the weekend against the Razorbacks. But, like you said, that these top 4 teams, in my opinion, are interchangeable week by week. So I got Alabama at number 4 right now, Tate.
Blake at number 3. This is where I have the Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State got a good one against Rutgers, 49-10. There's a lot of debate about that fake punt they ran. I mean, if I was a punter, I probably would have did it, but like at the same time, you're up 49-10. The game's basically over. I don't know why you do that. But Ohio State, if they played a better team, I feel like I could rank them higher. But the best ones are against Notre Dame and Wisconsin, and those teams do not look good. But Blake, who do you have at number 3?
Tate at number 3, this is where I have the Michigan Wolverines ranked at. Like you said, they looked hot to start the game once against Iowa. And then it looked like a big old defensive game the rest of the game. I feel Michigan is the team to, not the team to beat in the Big Ten, but almost the team to beat in the Big Ten. Between them and Ohio State, or they're interchangeable. But I got Michigan at number 3, Tate.
And number 2, Blake, this is where I have Georgia. Georgia almost lost to Missouri, and I don't care what you say. A win on the road in the Big Ten is a lot more impressive than a win on the road in the SEC. I feel like that's been a big debate these past couple of days, but playing at Iowa is much better than playing at Missouri. But Georgia, I feel like they're still a top team in the nation. They've been down in the last 2 weeks, but are we forgetting what they did the first 2 weeks? I mean, they smacked Oregon and smacked South Carolina. But man, Georgia is number 2 for me. Blake, who do you have at 2?
Tate, I agree with you. I got Georgia at number 2. I think they're having they're a rough slump for the season. I think they're going to bounce back, and I got the Georgia Bulldogs at number 2, Tate.
All right, now it's time for our 1 spot. You guys probably know who my 1 is and who his 1 is. My number 1 is Alabama. Alabama has not a tough battle, but they played Texas A&M this week, who they lost to last year. But all in all, I feel like Alabama has the best win against Arkansas compared to the other teams, and they also had that one against Texas. But Alabama, they have the best wins, and they just look the best, in my opinion. Blake, who do you have at 1?
Tate at number 1, this is where I have the Ohio State Buckeyes ranked. 5 weeks into the season, I feel like they are the most complete all-around team. As of right now, it may change next week, but right now, I got the Ohio State Buckeyes at number 1.
Well, guys, that's it for the top 25. Comment your top 5 down below, and then comment your surprise team in the top 25. But until next time, peace out, Go Show.
Go show out.